Okay, so this is the March 5th, 2026 meeting of the Littleton Sustainability Committee. And we'll start out with a roll call, please, Margaret.
Okay, I have Sarah Rombacher, Chair, Charlotte Dolenz, Co-Chair, Libby Donegan, Margaret Gibbs, myself, John Hagberg, Don McIver, and Emily Squires as members. Then Diane Dickerson, Karen Morrison, Jenny Raitt, and Kelly Linema as guests. Are there any other guests?
I think Leah said she was going to try to dial in, but I don't see her here, so maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And no one absent?
No absences.
Great. And then, so next would be minutes to approve. So the minutes are the February 12th, 2026 minutes that were sent out to the committee. Are there any comments? Okay, no comments. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, and a second?
I'll second it with thanks to Margaret for great notes.
All right. So all in favor of approving the minutes, we'll go around for roll call vote, Margaret. Or I guess I call it Margaret.
Yes.
Emily. Oh, can you unmute, Emily?
Sorry. I'm going to abstain because I was not at the meeting.
Okay. Charlotte? Libby?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Don?
I should abstain since I didn't attend. But very helpful reading them.
Okay. And I also approve. Good. Great minutes as usual, Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So next would be public input. I don't think we have any public input unless one of our guests had that in mind. Okay, so I'll go on to student ambassador introduction. So our student ambassador, who is one of the students that presented last month, is not here, but we do have an introduction to do because we have Libby Donegan here as a new member of the committee. And welcome, Libby. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself or
Sure.
why you joined?
Yes. I'm an MPH in public health practice graduate student at UMass right now. I'm almost done with my degree, doing my practicum this semester at the center on Shattuck Street. So it's been a lot of fun, but I care a lot about the environment and building the community up. So I thought this would be a really fun group to join. And I like the work that you've done so far with the climate action plan. So I know I'm kind of coming in a little bit later in the game, but I'm looking forward to joining you all.
Thank you. Never too late.
Thanks.
All right, then next on the agenda then is climate action plan, reviewing that. And I'm gonna go ahead and Jenny and Kelly, I'm gonna promote you to panelists. There you are. All right, so you guys sent us a draft, and the committee that was sent out to the committee. We, I think, provided a few comments and then some comments on the lead roles to try to flesh out where it said town as the um, uh, lead for that measure. And we've done a little bit of outreach to the boards and departments. I think Diane said she sent it out to the departments, and I think Charlotte, you sent it out to board. I've got a couple, but since we were 2 days away, I was wondering I was holding off on sending it out because I thought we might be able to put those leads in and then send it. So I don't know if you guys want to give an update from your perspective. Oh, Diane, go ahead if you want to add in your status. If you can talk.
I can't hear Diane, if anybody else can.
I can't either.
I can see two Dianes on the call. I don't know if one of them works.
Be promoted as a panelist, because I still have her down as an attendee rather than panelist.
Yeah, I tried, Diane, if you want to accept that, if you can. Here she comes. All right. Do we have you yet, Diane? Well, let's go on with Jenny or Kelly, if you want to give us a status. We'll see if we can get Diane in the meantime.
Yeah, sure. Well, do you want to take committee people, or do you want me to go?
Did anyone else have comments you wanted to say, your status or anything? Emily, go ahead.
I'm just a little confused. I apologize for not being at the last meeting. I listened to the recording. If I understand properly, please help me if I got it wrong. The drafts were supposed to go out to the committee members, and then get the results back by the second. That was incorporated into the presentation today.
Something crazy is going on. I think I'm going to exit and come back in. Let's see if I can. Because right now it looks like I'm two people.
Sorry, Emily. I think Diane's trying to. I think she had some feedback going on. So,
want me to repeat what I was saying?
Yes. Could you
Yes,
could you
please.
speak up into your microphone, because it's a little low here?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now, Margaret?
Still low.
It's kind of low.
I don't know how to increase it.
Just if you get closer to the mic, maybe.
Okay, it's on my computer. Okay, so my question is, can you clarify exactly what the objective was going to be for this meeting? My understanding from listening to the video recording from last time was that we were going to get, that Sarah and Charlotte were going to get the draft to send to the committee, out to the committees, and the committees were supposed to get their response back by the second to be incorporated in for this meeting. Is that what's going on now, or can you clarify, or did I misinterpret what I thought I heard on that recording from last meeting?
That was the goal. Unfortunately, we were a little slow in getting it out. And so the last I talked to Diane, she had sent it out, but had not heard anything back from any of the departments. It wasn't very long. And I didn't get any comments back from anyone except Charlotte and I did some work on it.
Yeah, and I even though I sent the follow-up to LELWD, it's only been a few days, so I also have not received any feedback beyond what you and I worked on together, Sarah, which is our inputs, not the departments nor the committees yet.
Just a question. When you're interacting with the departments, are you telling them what our deadlines are? Do they clearly understand when we are looking for input?
Diane, if you're able to unmute, you probably want to talk to that.
I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yay.
Yay. Okay. I did send out to the departments after talking to Jim. Like I said, I didn't even get really directions for this until Monday of this week. And so I sent it out on Monday to the departments after talking to Jim. I have not gotten any feedback from any of the departments. I also sent to LELWD and didn't get any feedback from them either. Okay. The only feedback I got from Jim was to kind of highlight the fact that the departments don't have a lot of availability or staff to take on additional responsibilities related to this, and especially not having to do with any research or education. So he wanted to make sure that as things, I mean, I if there's, I'll probably be doing some research and some, if there's any grant applications, I definitely will be doing anything related to green communities because that's where I'm supposed to be focusing. And I saw in here some mention of green communities possibility for coaching and such. So I've reached out to our regional coordinator to see if that actually is a possibility because, we'll be coming up and onto some, I think the next competitive grant submission is early April. So if there's anything I could submit in that, I would be doing that as well. Right now, I'm trying to figure out what we can submit, if anything, to green communities in April for other things, because one of the things we had already primed the pump to submit for another $100,000. We found green communities has changed the rules on that, and so we cannot submit that. It was phase 2 of some LED lighting at the high school, and so we're going to be strapped as far as that's concerned. So we're trying to figure out what else we might be able to submit in this round. I just wanted to let you know kind of that's where we stand. I did recently submit to Greenworks for Schools a couple of projects I just finished submitting last week for some canopies at 2 of the schools, the high school and the middle school. And I think it's a big stretch to think we might get it, but Sarah had a good comment that you can't win if you don't play. So I tried anyway. So, but I don't have anything, unfortunately, from any of the departments at this point. Other than there is somewhere in my comments, I mentioned something about transportation, how the assistant town administrator and the town planner are working on something in that regard. Okay.
Okay. I think, Charlotte, your hand was up next.
Thanks. Yeah, Dan, just maybe a thought in response to what you're saying about the departments and well, basically everybody, I guess, being pretty strapped and short-staffed, busy, etc. I wonder if one kind of framing for this might be, of the CAP strategies that are at least currently in the draft, which ones are within the remit anyway of the department, so we already have alignment and agreement. And I'm thinking of a couple, for instance, in the LELWD, are already actions that they are pursuing within their mandate or their plans, versus actions that would require either additional budget, additional effort, and therefore those ones I think we would want to treat differently, maybe in terms of their, the whether they're short-term, medium-term, or long-term, and then we might also determine those are the ones that might need more, as you said, more work, more coordination, etc. But in my read of it, some of the sort of putting a town lead name or a department lead against it is more to signify that this falls within the general remit of this department, not that one is now mandated to take it on, if that makes sense. Okay. Penny or Kelly, if you want to correct me on that, but this isn't a budget. It's not an implementation plan per se. It's more of a the building department saying, yes, this would broadly fit within our remit should we take it on. But I completely hear what you're saying, that it might seem a little daunting to read through this and go, oh my goodness, now we're expected to deliver on all of these actions when we're not adequately funded or staffed to do so. So I get that, but I'm just curious, maybe also from Jenny and Kelly, how other towns or what's the best process for that?
Yeah, Charlotte, I was taking your definition to Jim, and he felt it rather daunting for the departments. Okay, but I did go through. I think if you take a look at my comments, I did identify. I think B1 through B4 is LELWD, but I think it should be clear that LELWD is not actually a town department. Okay, it's a municipality in its own. Okay, so it is not a town department under the town manager. Okay, and that's why I also sent to Connor Reardon over at LELWD, because he is the energy person over there. Where I saw like B5, I said that would be outreach and land and building and planning departments. It's kind of in their domain, but to call them a lead was not a good thing. And that I also thought in that case, things like participants in planning board meetings could, drive a lot of that, a lot of those discussions. I'm trying to think where else I might have. I think B8, I said LELWD. B9, I mentioned conservation, zoning, plans being reviewed by building and conservation and zoning and planning board. T1, I said it's currently being explored by the assistant town administrator and the town planner. And that T2 was like that. I don't know. I don't, should I continue on? But I mean, I did kind of put where there was a department involved to, that it's in their territory, but having them considered a lead was, not really acceptable. Okay. Does that help? If you take a look at my comments that I sent over. I mentioned DPW in T3, along with MassDOT and conservation and planning and developers. Same thing on T4. T5 is like T1 and 2. And T6 is back to LELWD again. That's where the charging stations are. T7, I think, was the idling of vehicles. So I don't know if police would take this on, but I put in there that, you know, it's probably in the area of police and school admin, but I'm not sure what they would do. And T8, I said, was kind of an expansion of T1 and T2.
So we probably don't, I mean, we have these on paper, so we
can go on through all of them, right?
Yeah, we don't need to go through all of them,
but I do actually
think
mention departments in areas for where there's a relationship or a contact or something.
Mm-hmm.
And in most of those, if there needs to be someone contacting them, given that I've got the time, I can probably help with that, you know, working with them. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that, so maybe we need to have a conversation with the TA about, you know, that this plan is a map, but it's not necessarily, like Charlotte said, it's not a funded like list of things that we're doing immediately, but it's a roadmap for making decisions. So, and again, Jenny and Kelly, if I'm sure this isn't the first time you've heard this sort of thing, if you have advice on framing this.
I'm happy to step in at any point, or if you want to just keep going, and then we can kind of, after that, kind of speak, get through everything or respond. How about that? So there's like 4 hands.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I think Libby, you've moved to the top left, so I think that means you're the next hand.
Okay. It's kind of musical pictures here.
Yeah.
My practicum addresses climate resiliency. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't want to break any ethics, anything, and I would have to recuse myself from any kind of participation in voting on anything with this board. But I was starting to look into possible grants to support that earlier today. I know you were mentioning looking for projects in town. So there might be a possibility there. Also, to one of your comments about enforcing emissions, I don't think police would be enforcing a roadmap with good intentions. I feel like they probably wouldn't be enforcing anything unless it's a law or bylaw. Maybe school staff could do that, but I'm not sure that police would address something like that.
I mean, about the idling in particular, that actually is a law.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, then I probably could. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's all.
Okay. Emily.
Yeah. Okay. I really still have my same question. I don't understand what was actually sent out to the departments, what type of timeline it was stated to them, and what memo went along with the list. So I'm really still in very much of a quandary here of what's really going on. And maybe we as a committee should sit down and draft out the memo and the draft that goes to the departments, and particular, if we think they're going to be overwhelmed, we could break down the action items or the sections and only send it to the ones that are appropriate, so they don't look at a huge document and have concerns with it. But right now, I still do not know what was actually said to them, what type of deadline was asked. I'm not quite sure why it took a week to send it out, because the draft was received last Monday, and I understand Diane, you just said that it went out this Monday. So what's holding up these activities? And maybe we don't have the right expectation on timelines within our town. So I think we really should talk about that and how do we expedite if we think it needs to be expedited. And if need be, sit down as the committee with the town administrator to make sure that they really understand what this is all about. So I'm still very confused as what actually went out and what was asked of the departments. And if anyone can clarify that, I think that would be good. And then my next question is, what's the step forward? It sounds like the action item was not completed. And the third question is, Diane's talking about her input, but I didn't see the input. And I don't think I should have necessarily. It was supposed to go back to, for integration for this next meeting, but I don't see a real point of doing the meeting if we only have one person from the town's input into this. Sorry, that's my input.
Okay. Charlotte, did you want to speak?
Yeah, still just to follow up, I think noting the conversation earlier that we really need to define what we mean by lead, what that implies and how the town wants to approach it. But I'll wait to hear from Jenny and Kelly on their guidance on that. Thanks.
Don?
Yeah, I can understand people's reaction when they see it and they think, department head, they think, oh, here's extra work. If anything, it's the natural behavior to ignore or lessen your what you consider your obligation. I mean, for lead, it's really sort of purview, not legal jurisdiction. It's like, are you already doing work in this area? And in some cases, it's going to be new perspective, such as energy efficiency, for a lot of departments, like for the planning board. But it's really, is this the area you're working? Is this within the scope of what you're doing already? And maybe that's a trick to convey that, that it's really purview and you're a group that should be consulted in how this is done, because it's sort of within the territory of your work. But I can understand well that the reaction of most department heads to back away from it and think, you're committing yourself to additional work, and no one wants to really do that. So that's just the comment.
Karen?
I actually had a comment about the idling, but I'm very slow to hit the hand button. So maybe if you want to come back to me later on, sure. I can talk to you all about that. Thanks.
Sure. John, I think you're next.
Can just maybe a quick step back, right? We partnered with MCOG and signed in to do this grant to build a climate action plan it was the support of the TA that allowed us to do that, correct? As a committee overall? I don't know if that, my question is, I wonder if the approach is to educate on the findings of that and have a real discussion first with the TA around what this means before we take the next step with the committees to get on board. Because Emily, I'm less concerned about the logistics. I totally understand where did something go? Has it been there yet? What I'm hearing is there is resistance to the approach from the TA, and likely with maybe just not understanding what it is, or it may be for the reasons that it thinks it's generating work, right? Which none of us are trying to do. So it feels to me like what we're hearing is maybe there's a step, and I'll just leave that as a comment and wait to hear from Kelly and Jenny as well.
Okay, I think I've seen Diane's hand raised for a bit, even though you didn't move to the corner. So I'm going to call on you next.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the resistance is the question of how much time commitment is going to be expected. And, you know, definition of lead, what's involved. I mean, purview and, you know, maybe a level of consulting or something, but driving in, delivering where it's talking about outreach, where it's talking about educating the public. I mean, they've got a lot to do internally versus externally, if you know what I mean. So I think that's where it is. And and I think the feeling was, this is going to be a living document that's going to go on. It's not like we're going to be finishing this climate action plan in the next few months. This is something that is going to continue to be expanded and filled in. So I think it's not that he doesn't support. I mean, he supports the idea of a climate action plan, and this is the start. But it's like, to tell his department heads you're going to be lead in each of these topics again, I think it's a definition of lead that comes to play in how much time commitment's involved. He's not saying he doesn't support it, if you know what I mean. Okay, I hope that's understood. Okay, but it's just, you know, you can't be asking the department heads to do all this extra work when their plates are already full. So the question is, what is the extra work that might be expected, right? Does that help at all?
Charlotte, it looks like you're next.
Yeah, I feel like, Diane, your points are very valid, and I feel like there is this kind of very healthy overlap place where I think we do all agree very much. I think just being very specific about what exactly those roles and responsibilities are, and how the cap is interpreted. Like you said, if promoting the renewable opt-in energy option, for instance, is something that like Morta already does. And so, I mean, I'm just using that as one example. If we're framing this as somehow it's more, then yeah, I agree. We need to kind of reset that framing. But if it is more a matter of saying, well, you know, promoting this opt-in to the renewable energy is something that, you know, like Morta already, the Light Department already does. And so we want to make sure it's captured here and that it's appropriately tagged to the Light Department. Yeah, I guess I think we're probably skirting around the same thing a little bit, but I agree it'd be good to pin it down. So thanks.
Don.
Yeah, I had a conversation this afternoon with Mara Toohill from the planning board, and one of the questions like, I told her various things to be coming forward about strategies and, department heads to be contacted. And she's saying, just to summarize, she said, who's supporting it? Is this the Sustainability Committee? And, we report to the town administration, the select board. And, the question is, okay, is this the select board doing it? And I think that is the answer. I think people should know it's the select board that's endorsing it through the town administrator. Obviously, there's concerns about not representing it's going to be extra work, but the people hosting this, essentially the select board. And our committee is responsible or accountable to the select board, basically. So I think if you're going to get any responses, that has to be communicated, and it's the select board essentially trying to coordinate whose area of expertise is there, whose purview for things, not necessarily for assigning extra work. Although in some cases it will be extra work. Maybe that happens over time. But I think the message has to be clear that it's the select board that's doing it based upon what has been done so far, our town meeting vote declaring there's an energy emergency, we need to do something. I think if it's just comes across that here's this, board, the sustainability committee board, without any, justification other than the select board, we're essentially going to be ignored, and that's just an organizational setup. Anyway, that's my statement.
All right, I see Emily, Charlotte, Libby, and I think then, and Diane's hand is also, and then I think that we should stop and let Jenny and Kelly address this. So go ahead, Emily.
My concern is that communicating to the board, or I'm sorry, to the department heads, needs to be very clear as to what you're asking, just like all of the rest of our plans, have, like the hazard mitigation plan has different departments as the quote lead, okay? But until it's funded and it's agreed to move forward, this is like a 5-year plan, okay? We update it in 5 years. It's something that is, that's the objective. So it has to be communicated that we're not asking, we're not doing all of this at once. I thought it was pretty clear, but as you read through, but the department heads might not have read through, had time to read through it. So it had to be introduced to them properly as to what's being asked. With regards to not wanting to take responsibility, I would be really shocked if they weren't. I mean, this is like having, being responsible for something, and then, you actually, at least I would be upset if something that was in my domain was not assigned to me because I'm my department's the expert. The other thing that needs to be clearly understood is that even when it's budgeted and the project is started on that, the department's not the only, they're the lead. It does not mean they have to do the whole job. They have committees to help them with, and other parts of the town, other departments, and so on. So I think it has to be clearly understood. And again, I'm reiterating, I think we really should, step one, get the town administrator, Jim Duggan, to one of our meetings, or have a meeting during the work hours if he can't do it after hours, and make it clear what we're doing here. The committee drafts a memo to the department heads, gets the approval of the town administrator to make sure it's clear and that he could answer any questions if he has pushback by his department heads, and then put realistic timelines on it. Talk with the town administrator. How long does he expect it would take, and have him accountable that, everyone who reports to him should, this is a responsibility that if he signs up for, they need to deliver. Okay. And I think that's how we should proceed.
Charlotte?
Yeah, I think, Emily, I just was going to actually suggest the same thing, and I concur with you. I might go a step further to say maybe Karen, Jim, and a couple members of the committee get together and just sit down in person and talk that out. Seems like that would be helpful. I don't know, Karen, what you think about that? I just threw you under the bus there, but
no worries. No, I could initiate that. Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Libby?
I reviewed the plan for the first time yesterday. So as somebody that's sort of newer to this document, I do sort of think of it as a roadmap or something like Healthy People 2030 or our, master plan for the town that should help guide decision-making in town. So when these departments are making decisions about budgeting or how to allocate certain resources, they should consider this document in their decision making. And that's sort of how I think of it, and maybe a way that we can sort of frame it to people too, because it looks like some of the long-term goals that we would measure our success with go to 2050, and that's a pretty long time. So it seems like some of these things are guiding decisions for the future, which is a while. Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to just add that, yeah, I agree. I see this is a plan. It should have the backing of the select board, which is who we are under, and then it's a plan, and the select board and the TA going forward can use this to inform budget and other plans. So I think, like you guys have said, it is a matter of communicating it properly. And now I am going to pass it on to the experts who have probably dealt with this in other places, and I would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, sure. And Kelly, feel free to jump in. I mean, I think just to kind of rewind for a second. So when we left the last meeting, we said that we were going to send a memo, which would then kind of provide sort of guidance as to how to review it and what feedback we were looking for and in what format, and that would help us to then have this discussion tonight. We sent that on February 17th. And we had asked for a consolidated set of comments by March 2nd. And the memo basically asked for folks to look at, and we only sent the excerpt with the strategies, not the whole entire plan document, but just to focus on the strategy, the action plan strategies. And we had asked kind of specific questions around, not just who's the lead, but also what are priorities, what are opportunities to work together, what are things that are already in progress, for example. This is not the exact language, because if I look at it at the same time as the screen, it just doesn't work. But if you all basically understand that that's what we left you with. So what we received were some comments from Diane, and comments from, I believe, Sarah and maybe Charlotte, with a spreadsheet. And we haven't changed anything in the document just yet. So that kind of brings us to tonight. When I reviewed what was provided to me, I actually didn't have many questions. I mean, I noticed that you had questions, but I didn't personally have, I understood what was written in all of the documents. And one of the tasks that we were going to have tonight was to actually review everything together. That was what we were going to do tonight. Based on what I'm now hearing, and I think, we're both hearing, it's seeming like, one, you need more time to do this task. And then two, I think maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking it through a little bit. I don't want to say. I want to say that we're still continuing to pursue what we're in pursuit of some sort of plan. I don't know exactly what the final document looks like right now based on this conversation, because I think it feels like we're ahead of where maybe the departments are at and maybe other people in the town are at. So that to me signals an opportunity to slow down, but also to maybe get the document right. That it could be a tool to explain to people why you're doing this, why it's important to do it, and then to provide some frameworks in the topical areas like buildings and transportation, et cetera, in those areas about the measures that are recommended for the town to take. And maybe some suggestions in terms of the next steps that the town might take after we provide this to you, which could be further engagement, further deliberation, perhaps even intersecting with the next master planning process. Or I think Don maybe noted the declaration of a climate emergency or something, something from a board an elected board that is a pronouncement that this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And we had kind of talked about this a while ago, actually, about the importance of an elected body doing that. So that kind of clarifies why you're then creating a plan. And so that's sort of my thinking. I'm sorry, that's a little bit jumbled, but first part was, how did we get here tonight? I think I clarified that. I think everybody was on the same page, and it appears that everybody received the same information. I explained to you what we received, and that brought us to tonight. I also explained what we were expecting from tonight's meeting. And then I've just recapped what I've heard and how I think that might mean we're actually we're not quite where we need to be for this kind of plan. That's not a negative thing, by the way. That's just an awareness thing. Like we're not quite there yet. So what do we want to do collectively? You also might say to me, no, we are really there and we're going to get it done. And we'll be back in touch with you in 3 weeks, which is fine. By the way, you can totally tell me that. I just heard a lot of you question things and have questions that probably can't be resolved by you logically because you're not carrying out these activities day to day. We still haven't talked to other entities where there's an expectation that they're going to implement things in this plan. So there's a lot of other steps that kind of need to happen, it seems, before we can kind of just keep rolling this forward. I wouldn't recommend that as a planning professional to just keep rolling it forward just because, but rather take it as an opportunity for let's collectively just decide what we want to do next. And I'm also happy to answer other questions about what other communities have done. And this is not to say Littleton's doing something differently or not. Every community is a little bit different. And and we also talked about the ways that this could be resolved. You all collectively have already named it, through potentially another meeting with the town administrator's office or other things to that effect. So there might be some other follow-ups beyond just regrouping here. And I see Diane has her hand up, but that's Kelly. Did I capture it? Okay. That's what we are thinking.
Diane, do you want to go ahead? Okay, we can't hear you, Diane, so I don't know if you're able to unmute.
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Yeah, Jenny, you said you read my comments and you saw I had a lot of department heads listed, and that's where I saw them as purview as opposed to a driving lead. Okay, and so I think that's part of it. And I think where some of these things, if they got identified as like short-term, mid-term, long-term, that might help. And another thing is if we tried to look at the things, and there's, I think in this document, it talks about ongoing and supporting. I think it was ongoing and supporting activities or programs. Like there's a difference. There may be some that are ongoing. It might be great if we could identify which ones are ongoing that we're aware of. And the supporting might be another category that is stuff we can look into, maybe along the lines of, I don't know, Mass Clean Energy or some potential grants or something like that. So if we could kind of divide those, that might also be helpful because you could sort of see what's going on in town already. I think that might help. But like I said, short-term, mid-term, long-term, and what's going on already. I mean, that's kind of my perspective. I don't know what other people think, but I think that would make it a little bit clearer. And then The other thing is, I know you're working on other sections of the document, things like the greenhouse gases and stuff like that. And I know that falls a lot more into the green communities activities that I've been involved in as well. So I know I had provided a lot of data to, I've already forgot her name. I'm sorry.
Michelle.
Michelle. I know I'd provided a lot of data to Michelle on this as well. So, I mean, I suspect that's another section. I don't know whether it's section 1, 2, whatever, that's talking more about what's going on in the buildings themselves. Does any of that help? Anyway, those are my thoughts. Okay.
Okay, so I guess for next steps, so the things I've written down that Karen, you could set up a meeting with yourself and Jim and probably me and or Charlotte or
Okay. Yep.
Okay. We should probably at least I had this in my head to do and didn't get it done, was to write sort of the cover letter that goes out with the climate action plan to ask for input and comments. And I just didn't get to that. So yeah, that's something I plan to do. Actually, Charlotte, I see your hand up. Did you want to?
Just as we're going through this process, I wonder if it'd be helpful to revisit that. I'm struggling to recollect exactly what we called it. Maybe it was a focus group that Michelle did with the departments, just to kind of revisit the comments that were there as well, to kind of make sure that we're having a bit of a through line from what was shared and discussed in that focus group. That was a while ago now. I think we called it a focus group.
Yeah, we did it. That was integrated into the document already.
I sort of meant like reminding everybody back a little bit, like,
Okay.
And maybe that's more for the communication that goes out from us and the TA's office, is like, you know, as was discussed, and then referencing that focus group discussion meeting at least. Again, so it's kind of like a through line.
Sarah, if I could hook onto that, is that all right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Charlotte, that's a great point. And I wonder, Kelly and I were thinking that also we could facilitate another maybe conversation or focus group. We can call whatever we want. Something fancy like a focus group. But we could basically facilitate a discussion. It could just be with staff. I think what we had done before with staff and then volunteers, we were dividing that up. You know, of course, if it's okay, Diane, to, you know, work through the town administrator's office to see if there's willingness to do something like that. And maybe it would just include department heads. We've done this in other communities, specifically when we're at the point where we're talking about actions, we're talking about implementation, who's going to do what. It doesn't exactly get to the issue of timeline or prioritization. That doesn't always come up from those conversations, but it certainly could surface some of the concerns that people have, and maybe also provide a little bit of encouragement. And then just one other thing I wanted to mention is that, Diane, we do have a whole section, the beginning, the introduction has a whole part about the greenhouse gas inventory. And that's just part of the plan itself, by the way. So thank you. Thanks for that point.
Don?
Yeah, if you have a focus group of the town department heads and so on, it might be worthwhile also asking them what their concerns are, because, you know, they'll have legitimate concerns. And one of which is extra work without resources. And it may be worthwhile to explain that, you know, if there is extra work, then maybe people need to get resources. They can't do it until they get the additional resources, either peer review or consultant or something, whatever. But I can think of when I was at Mass DEP, there were a lot of concerns because a lot of things got thrown upon different groups through the legislature and agreeing to things. And it was a common thing for people to say, well, they couldn't do it unless they had more resources. So I think that's one of the more basic concerns town department heads may have. I mean, this is really to find out if something's going to happen, who's going to feel left out if they don't have some say about it, or they don't have some say about the priority. It's really trying to tap who has the expertise and experience in that area and make sure they aren't left out, making sure things are done well. So anyway, that's just my comment.
Okay, I think I saw Diane next and then Libby.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if possible, when you have the meeting with Jim, if you could potentially include me as well, since he usually asks me to get involved in some of it. And if I don't hear about it at the right time, I miss out. And just like, to be honest, I didn't get this document when it was sent out or available a couple of weeks ago. So, so that's why I didn't send it out earlier. So, you know, I just wanted to be clear about that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just point out we're all volunteers and you're part-time, and it's sometimes things happen. So no one should feel bad about any of that. We're all doing the best we can. Libby, go ahead.
I think you guys did a really great job on the plan. I reviewed it till like 2 a.m. last night because I wanted to be prepared for tonight. I think you did a really good job tying it into like the master plan, the hazard mitigation plan. I have it up on another screen over here. So I'm confused about why people in town are a little hesitant. I understand that maybe they feel like they need to take on more work, but maybe there's a way that we can show them. Maybe I think like somebody else mentioned some of the things that are already going on. I know when I was looking up grant information earlier, I saw that Littleton currently utilizes some sort of a waste recycling dividends grant that we received for last year. Maybe pointing out some of these things will help people understand that we're already sort of on our way. We're not starting at ground zero, maybe that we're already sort of in progress for some of these things would maybe help.
Okay. Diane, did you have something else or did you not put your hand down? I don't know. Okay. Okay. So, again, to recap. So I think our next steps are to have a meeting with the TA's office. We can float the idea of having a focus group with the department heads to try to socialize this and help everyone to understand. And we'll make sure that it does get distributed to everyone as soon as possible. Is that, am I missing anything?
If I might, Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just,
go ahead.
I think the only other thing that I would suggest, and we didn't specifically say this, but it's clear that folks just need more time to look at it. So, you know, maybe regardless or in tandem with talking with the town administrator, there still needs to be that effort to really reach out to the other boards and committee. There still needs to be that happening. And I sense that more time is needed for that to be accomplished. The other conversation is still just as important, but is more internal focused on staff was my understanding when we were talking about the town administrator. Is that
okay?
Was that aligned with what other people were saying? Thought process? Maybe.
I think so. I see Emily, you have your hand.
Yeah, I just would like to ask that the outcome of that meeting and be shared with the whole committee. so that we have an opportunity to give feedback on any memo that would go out to the department heads, and so that we're not knowing what was actually said to them. And if there is a focus group, at least a couple of us on that committee should be invited, if not the whole committee, so that we can hear what they're saying.
Oh yeah, I think we'd probably post a focus group as a public meeting. John.
Yeah, I think, Jenny, what you said about, is that right? The TA, it's a combination of time and goals and just getting alignment. Again, to me, this plan could start as a collection of the things we're already doing and grow into the things we're going to build and grow into, and then get really good as we get closer to 2050 at making this just part of our process. I don't think we've maybe brought others along for the ride that's the way we've talked about this and thought about it. And so maybe this is just a note for Charlotte and Sarah when you guys go and talk to Jim and T. It's a plan is not just a list of things we're doing. And so are we all aligned that we're building a plan, right? We got aligned as a town, we needed a hazard mitigation plan. We got aligned as a town, we needed a master plan, and we got a vote from the town this last time saying there was a climate emergency, but that we would come back to them before we asked anyone to do any more work, because we could not bind the town to any work. And so we're now seeking, talking to Jim and his team and then the department heads on where are we at with putting work behind that. And if we're not on the same page, then there's probably, back to everyone's point, there's a sell to the select board to come in and make this a priority of the town. And without that, then we're just kind of turning our wheels for not. So I'm thrilled you guys are talking. I just wanted to share my thoughts on what we should be talking to Jim about.
Karen?
Thanks. John just hit on a lot of the points that I was going to discuss, but it is in terms of priorities. The select board sets the priorities that Jim focuses on a day-to-day basis, and so I think this meeting needs to be a little bit more about getting Jim's input than on, and making sure that Jim doesn't think that it's, a mandate, right? Because he can't take a mandate unless the select board says, hey, we're behind this. So I think, to me, what would make the most sense would be to talk to Jim to get his input so that, what the cap is or how it's structured will be something that at least even notionally is workable for the town employees, so that when you come to the select board as a group, you can say, yeah, and we've talked about this, and this is feasible. And that's another, point in the favor of backing it and, making this a priority. But I think we just need to be a little bit careful about putting the cart before the horse. Does that make sense?
Yep. Jenny.
Yeah, I just a few things that I'm thinking about. So, and in relation to the recent comments, one is I think that this is what I am taking away as the order of events following this conversation, that there will be a recirculation of the memo or a new version of the memo or your own memo, some memo to other boards and committees in town with a clear, the same kind of clear message that we're looking for feedback on in these particular ways. I think that still should happen because it doesn't feel like we've received that feedback. I think in parallel to that, I agree that conversation with the town administrator is very important. And that sounds like just a conversation internally with the town administrator to clarify what is happening here, what is expected, and what this all means. During that meeting, I do suggest that you offer, because it is something that could happen during this process, a staff workshop that would be facilitated by NIMCOG to help go through the building section, all of the sections of the plan, and talk about what those measures mean and discuss some of the challenges to accomplishing them and the opportunities, something to that effect. I think the last thing that we actually didn't talk about yet, but we did talk about the last time we met, was that you as a committee would also think about your priorities. So because we had talked about how this plan also provides you with the opportunity to think about what your priorities might be and what you might work on. I actually think that that would go a long way in your conversations when you're messaging to other boards and committees what you're planning to do and take on, and also in your conversation with the town administrator, because I think it demonstrates that you are very committed to this, something specifically, potentially too. And it says, and so what would you be willing to do? How can you help? So I think that would be so there's 4 things there. I don't think that they have to happen I think they can happen together would be my suggestion, just to keep it moving, but I don't think that feels rushed at the same time.
Okay, sounds like a plan. I think unless anyone has any other burning things they need to say about it, then we should move on. Charlotte, you've popped your hand up. Go ahead.
Or just on that last point, Sarah, I'm wondering, do we want to then talk about our priorities at the next meeting? Do we want to send you directly comments on the cap with that specific question in mind? How do we want to tackle what are our priorities as a committee?
I personally feel like I would like to have the cap a little more settled before I look at it and think about what our priorities are. But I think if everyone is wanting to do that sooner than later, then I'd be happy to take inputs and then we could put it on the agenda for next month. But I don't want to just come in blind to next month and have just start throwing things out. I'd rather everyone put their list together and we can compile that and see how much overlap there is or whatever. I don't know. Does anyone
clarify that? What would you like? Could you just restate that?
Well, I guess I'm asking, do we want to do those priorities for the next month? Or do we want to let this solidify a little bit for another month before we do that? If we want to go ahead and have it next month, what I was suggesting was everyone can look through those measures and list out what you think the sustainability committee's priorities should be, and I'm happy to compile those and see what the commonalities and overlaps are.
So what the priorities should be on implementing them, or which are most important? I'm not clear.
Kelly, you threw your hand up. Do you want to talk about that?
Maybe to help facilitate this, we have an engagement platform. I could set up the high priority measures on that engagement platform, so you all could go in and rank them maybe by sector as far as your priorities. Maybe there's 2 components to it. It's what are your personal priorities for the town globally to get done? And then what priorities do you believe that the committee could take on? And so you could have the results of that to inform your next meeting. So you don't spend the majority of the meeting sharing the responses, but then you see maybe globally, how does that prioritization emerge? That's something we could set up and share with you so you could respond to that. I mean, if you could have a deadline, maybe being the week before the next meeting, so we could get you those results, that may be the most productive way to move forward, just to keep this moving along the timeline as well.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
I was going to say, one of the things I think I could do is go through where there's ongoing and supporting. Maybe I could start creating a collection of those things that I know that I'm aware of or can find out are going on today. I mean, would that be helpful? And
yes,
I think, because as I read through here, I was thinking of a number of things that I think are already going on and people may or may not be aware of them. And
that would be really helpful.
So I could try to put in what I'm aware of at least. And also, I was wondering if it, specifically to Jenny, did you understand what my comments were throughout the document for comments? I just wondered if that was clear enough, or if you had any questions as to what was going on there. And you can take it offline if it's easier. But anyway, I just wondered. That's all. Thank you.
I didn't have any questions about the comments. Nothing came up for me. I saw that there were some questions that you put in there, like wondering about something, but I didn't have any questions about the things that you commented on. And it was very clear to me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. I think that would be really helpful, Kelly, if you can do that. All right. It's getting late, so I think we should move on. John, I think you have some updates on the Energize Littleton site and domain.
Yep. So the folks at Mass Energize, Sarah, Charlotte, and I met about a month and a half ago and went through the new platform. We worked through and just updated language, found things like we had in 2023, the Littleton Sustainability Committee is focused on X, Y, and Z. So just kind of cleaned up some of that language on the Energize Littleton site. The major change that needed to happen to go to the new platform, the platform URL was based on the old Mass Energize platform. And so our URL was going to change either to a new string of on the Mass Energize new platform, or we could take the step of spending $10 a year to obtain the domain energizelittleton.org, and then just make one transition where we update websites and anywhere else where we have the Energize Littleton website cited. So like the things we bring to and from tables, we just have to update the QR codes there. The town, I believe, has it. I got to reach out to the town to update that to Energize Littleton. Charlotte, I don't know if you have anything on Facebook or other places where we have the old domain tagged, but if it is anywhere, we should just update it. So our new website is live. It's under energizelittleton.org. Mass Energize picked up the tab for the $10 for the first year. They just said, we got to keep this thing moving along. Happy to pay the $10. So I think we just may want to do a motion at some point to authorize the spending of $10 every year when we do the renewal. I don't know if I should move that. That's maybe a point of order that I'm not clear if I should move that now, or when we're up for our renewal, just do a motion at that point, because we could always step away from it. I don't know how you think about that from a rules of order.
I think we probably should do it next year because it'll be paid next year, so it'll be next fiscal year.
Perfect. So that's the exciting news. Site's live. Sarah, Charlotte, I are all our administrators. I'm trying to watch the local events that are coming up. That the system changed a little. It's not quite as easy to add, just like link over events. They're working on that feature and bringing it into the platform. So watching the Mass Energize announcement as well as the town boards for events. If anyone sees an event and you want to have it on energizelittleton.org, happy to have you shoot that my way and I will make sure it gets there.
Great. Thank you for handling that. Should we, I was thinking, Charlotte, should we do some posts saying, hey, our site is revamped and if you haven't been there, go visit it now.
Yes, I will. I've got a recurring post that sort of points everyone towards our meetings to watch them and look at the minutes and such. So I can also add it to that recurring post. And then, yeah, as you said, John, I'll make sure also it's updated anywhere static. But yeah, I'm trying to drive some traffic over there.
And then I know you were talking to Leah about an Instagram account for this, because she said that was a better way to reach some of the younger demographic.
Yes, so still on my to-do list to actually get that up and running. But I think, as I think you'd suggested also, Sarah, we can easily push any of our content just straight over to Instagram, so it's not too much of a hassle to do that. And I was going to actually show you a couple little things about the current Facebook setup, but one of the key things I notice again and again is just we don't have that younger demographic at all represented on our Facebook hits, not surprisingly, perhaps. So I do think it would be worthwhile putting that together. And yeah, Leah said she would help, and then we can also link up with some of their content as well, which I think would be nice. But yeah, if you want, I can quickly share some stats from our Facebook page as well.
Sure.
Emily, did you want to jump in on that?
Sure. Thank you. I just wanted to point out, when you mentioned that we don't have very much of a younger generation on our sites, when I was watching the videos from last month, the high school students did an outstanding presentation, and a mention was made that it will become, that their information can go on to the Energize Littleton as an action and so on. What I would like to propose is that instead of just taking their documents and putting them in, I propose that that you work with them to help them put something up. I know you have to go through an administrator, but I'm trying to think, how do you get people, younger generations engaged, and having them actually see what they need to ask and what type of questions and how can they do it might spark them on to do it in other areas as well, not just the fish sustainability, which was excellent. So I wanted to see if that was possible.
Yeah, and I think definitely with Leah now being the ambassador, I think that's well within the realm. I think that they're incredibly proactive, very, very savvy when it comes to all these things. And I think the disconnect is more just the stuff that we're doing isn't getting pushed out to that younger audience. And I think therefore by also sort of vice versa, that there's a lot of information out there that is actually already happening. I mean, as Leah and her fellow students were saying, I mean, they're doing a lot of stuff, and we really need to also kind of cross-pollinate. So, I mean, the social media platforms being one way to do that. I think having Leah join our meetings whenever she's able to do so, I just feel like that, keeping those connections going, because yeah, I think like you're suggesting, Emily, I mean, they have no end of enthusiasm, it seems, and some really fabulous initiatives and ideas that they're taking on. So yeah, agree.
Is it possible to actually make them, Leah, a administrator to some of the, either Facebook or Instagram, whatever one she thinks that the high school students or junior high students, if she can think back, because she's relatively close to that age too, with maybe an approval by, someone on the committee, but trying to get engagement of actually doing it so they don't have to go in and feed it to us and not know what we need and so on.
Right. I mean, so she can create content on her own platform because they have an Insta account themselves. So that was one of the reasons. I mean, they're producing a lot of content, and then essentially we're kind of taking it for ourselves as well. So
what I'm trying to do is get the traffic. If they just all the students just go to their site, you're trying to get them to go to our site as well because we have other things. So how do we do the cross pollinations? But okay, thank you.
Yep. Also, really nice segue to what I was going to share real quickly, and I'm conscious of time here, but if you'll sort of humor me for a few moments here. One of the things, so when you go in, I don't want to do this live because you can start to see like a lot of the back end and who follows us and stuff, and I didn't think that was appropriate to screen share. So I'll just these are just screenshots from our Facebook site. So you can customize it and look at, for instance, Energize. The work that we started to do with the social media magic and getting the Canva account and the Plannable and having Mass Energize actually post stuff for us, that started in October. So you can see on especially the interactions chart on the top left here. Let me see if I can get a pointer going. But yeah, this is really where you see a lot less interactions happening. And then as we sort of start interacting with the mass, the sort of postings that they were posting for us and having access to Plannable and Canva, etc. So in terms of just how much traffic and how much, I guess, activity is happening, the things that I think are a little bit more interesting, though, are like how many views. So over here on the top right, and I've been noticing, like, when do we get more views on our page? And a lot of these spikes, every single one of them, is either a cross-posting. So it is something that I have posted, but that has a link, for instance, to LELWD or to the library or to the schools, or when I reposted, for instance, Harvard's Repair Cafe. Those are the ones that get a lot of views. And those are really then our opportunities to reach people, because for some of those, I then reposted again as myself, not sustainability. I reposted them to other pages and said, hey, and if you want to find out more, follow our page. And that's what happened. You see here, there's January 17th, there was a posting, and then we got a bunch of like 6-7 additional followers, just because when I shared a post to a different page and asked people to follow us, we get a few more followers. So I guess this was one key takeaway for us, just as individual members of the community. If we have other networks that we can be cross-posting to and saying, if you like what you see, please follow the committee page, we do seem to get a few pick up a few additional people that way. And then similarly, we can do that when we post, on Instagram, and then we can also, again, make sure that we get those followers, because then those people are now within the system and they're able to, they'll get it in their feed for things that are happening. So I think to the point we raised last time, what are we doing all this for? It's sort of building up a larger community of people that we can actually reach when we need to. So that's, and then just as an example, what you can do, like these are our top posts. And so the Harvard Repair Cafe has a pretty strong following here, because the moment I published that, even though it did get rescheduled, so if anybody's listening, it's no longer February 7th, it got rescheduled to this upcoming next Saturday. But you can see when we do that, we had almost 5,500 views to that. And a lot of those were non-followers. So we're really reaching out to like a new kind of audience. But again, you know, the 18 to 24 category, pretty measly here. We're not getting that reach. You know, we just don't have a lot of people looking at Facebook in that age group, right? So it's kind of understandable. And then similarly, when I link things, linking to the podcast, linking to the schools, you see, again, you get a little bit of a, you know, a more hits, and then also, again, bringing in new followers. So it's kind of changed then my perspective on what we post. You know, we've got a lot of the sort of standard materials coming out, which is great. It's informative for the base, if you like. But if we're really thinking about boosting outreach, we've got to get a little bit more creative about cross-posting. So my final plug would be anything you know about, send it my way. I'll stick it to the Facebook page, and even better if it involves another committee, another group, something we can kind of cross-post, and then also just as individual social media users, if you can share it far and wide. And then at least, yeah, within this demographic, I think we can build up a sort of a mobilized group, or an interested group at least. That was it.
Sorry, I'm talking while muted. Thank you. I think we can quickly do member updates if there's anything quick and time sensitive. I do have one thing. Someone emailed me today asking if the town has thought about doing a food waste collection, and gave at the transfer station, and gave some good information about it, and noting that there's a Mass DEP grant round opening for a $10,000 grant to, I think, to bootstrap this. I have barely read it because, like I said, I just got it today. The grant application opens on April 15th and closes on May 15th. I was thinking I would write back to her and ask if she wanted to, and she offered help in writing the grant as well. So I was going to write back to her and maybe connect her to a couple of people, unless any, you know, like maybe someone at the DPW. And yeah, I don't know if Diane, if this is something that you want to be looped in on.
I could try to talk to Steve Yanley or Stephen Whitten about it. I think, I'm not sure of this, so don't quote me, but I thought I heard that they had looked into collecting waste like that at the DPW, at the transfer station before, and there were issues related to rats, because there already have a lot of rats over there. I don't know for a fact, but it's in the back of my mind. I've heard that. I don't know where I heard that. I hear. Well, I don't know. So I don't quote me on it, but I can check with them if you'd like.
Yeah. Why don't I connect her with you, and
yeah, connect with me.
Yeah, and we can look at it. I'm assuming that the grant, someone smart knows about the problems with it, and that maybe this grant money helps to, I don't know,
maybe it
I'm
helps to contain it or something.
A container or something. Yes. So, yeah. So I'll write back to her, and we'll see if that can, where we can go. Dawn.
Hey, this is my highest priority input. So I'm going to have an ask. I've sent information out already about the King Street Common, and about what Lupoli has done in their other facilities of in-ground geothermal. They have one of the largest geothermal installations anywhere, and there are various locations in Lawrence and Lowell. They have put in large residences with green rooftops. There's a large garage they actually have a football field on top of, and they have solar installations. So the residence phase 1 project has been continued to the 19th, and the 2 developers will come back with it. What I'm suggesting is that we send a letter asking them to discuss and explore a couple of possibilities, energy efficient possibilities. And essentially something I could write, and if it were delegated for someone else to review it if they wanted to, we could send it off, and then the developers could be prepared to discuss this. Maren Toohill said, well, if you want something, ask for it. Doesn't mean anyone's going to do a whole lot with it, but at least it comes out in the public. And what I'm suggesting are some of the strategies mentioned in our documents. One is for them to discuss and explore putting in-ground geothermal to their residential phase 1 project. That's a 5-story residential building with 318 units. There's also a garage that's going to be 5.5 stories. The other is to explore solar canopies. That's one of the things suggested in the strategies that we have. And the third thing would be rooftop, green rooftop, or solar rooftop. And, this is private development. There's nothing they're mandated to do, but Lapoli has done this elsewhere. And in places that are very difficult to deal with, such as old mills and so on, here they have complete latitude, new construction, ideal site. They should at least discuss this. And once again, it's private development. It's a little bit different from Shaker Lane, where that was a public development. But of what I sent out to people, it gives the explanation why this should be explored. And they can, if they want to blow it off, they can blow it off. But if we don't ask, they will never address it. So that's the pitch, and that's the ask to allow a letter to go out from the committee asking them to explore it. Now, it's suggested go to Lapoli, who is a prime developer, to JLP developers, their subcontractor, and there's a Lapoli family member that's been showing up, Mary Lapoli. It's a family business, and essentially we're asking them to explore this. They've done this elsewhere. There are benefits to them of being cost effective and also helps their reputation. That's the whole pitch. Thoughts, concerns?
I have one comment. I would also add to that list looking at Passive House.
I'm sorry, you're looking at what?
Looking at Passive House construction. It's a practice that makes the buildings extremely energy efficient, and
they have some. I think they have some passive units from when I listened in on the last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of that's built in the plans.
Right.
Okay.
Libby has shown up, and you have a public letter online. So
I've done some research. I also think that we as a group should advocate for improved green infrastructure, also to help make it more pedestrian and bike friendly. Just from what I've seen in their plans, like I didn't notice like medians in their parking lot design. And again, it's just a rendering, so I don't really know what the exact plans are at this phase. But, having these like islands of green space within like a large area, it also is more friendly to people that have mobility issues for them to be able to sort of stop and pause for a moment as they're walking through a parking lot.
So if you want to send something to me,
to see, like I didn't see bus stops on their plans, but we should have bus stops for our transportation goals in the climate action plan, and we should have bus stops for the town bylaw that also says that development should have bus stops. And I've done research on that. I can send that off to whoever on the board here. But I've done a bunch of stuff for my own.
Right. In the past, they've blown off the bus stop saying, oh yeah, we're going to do that, but they don't give any details. And the same thing with the large parking lots, they've sort of blown that off too. It's fragmented, but our best chance is dealing with this massive number of residential units, which is the most we're ever going to see in Littleton. And if we don't ask, we won't.
Yeah,
we don't have any chance of getting it. But I'll also add.
I also want, I want public restrooms as well, because that also supports our goals here for making things more pedestrian and bike friendly. And I've done research too that I'm happy to send off to anybody as well.
Yeah, and that probably won't be in the residential phase 1 component. Everything's fragmented, and the restrooms had been mentioned with the retail. So I think that may happen. But if we don't get involved, it's, we're doing this theoretical planning, which is great, doing the best we can. But in the meantime, things are happening, and we have to be involved. And that's where we'll get some learnings about the planning board, how they feel dealing with stuff. And, there's nothing to lose to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is there sort of a consensus with that or other concerns?
Yeah, I offer my consensus.
Yeah, and for other folks, I mean, we're on board with that, but how about other people? You feel okay with that for doing an ask? For our names, asking to discuss and explore, and they have complete latitude, but at least they get the message that this is important. They should be thinking in those terms. And it would be okay if I put something together and maybe shared it with someone else on the committee to get approval. Maybe Sarah. I don't know what your time's like, but I could do something simple. And the trick is getting it out so they have time to respond to it, to look at, and come back with a response. And I'll be going to that meeting on the 19th. And once again, it'd be nice to have our meeting something other than the 19th. But, what's possible, we do. Thoughts? So, yeah, go ahead.
I see Libby, Charlotte, and John. Are your hands up to comment on this or other things? Okay.
Mostly just I don't have anything else to add other than what I've added.
Okay. Charlotte?
Yeah, just definitely an endorsement for this to be the way that we interact. I think, as we can all individually go to the hearings, but I really agree, Don. I think sustainability committee, putting a position out there, I think is the most effective way to do it. I would add things like, and maybe these have already been mentioned, quite honestly, but, are there any plans for or the inclusion of EV chargers? I know they talked a lot about native plantings, but I think that's something we can certainly harp on about a little bit more. As you mentioned, I think already, just generally energy conservation aspects of the buildings. And I know there's been a lot of discussion around the retail development and the design and the layout and how it faces. And I think with my sustainability committee hat on, that to me is a real walkability issue, right? If we want people to walk there, then you don't want to be kind of creeping around the back, So right. This notion of it not just being aesthetically, pleasing and what have you, but to encourage walkability. So I second everything that everybody else has already said. I wonder if just, putting that together, maybe there's a kind of prioritization, or at least maybe we just throw it all in, but say we have a lot of ways in which we want to engage in this process. And then also I think we can offer, right? We can offer to be sort of strategic thought partners as they go through this as well. So to the extent that, like you said, they may be open to that or not.
Yeah, and I did mention at the hearing that Sustainability Committee wants to be involved. It's much for the planning board to be on board too. It's new for them, and it's a little coaxing there. So the retail stuff, I think, is probably being voted on tonight. A lot of work has gone to rearrange it, and that's pretty much of a win. And that's the value of the public showing up in the audience and testifying. And I think a lot of the planning board members were supportive of that too, so supporting them. Parking lot, I don't know when that's going to get dealt with, but that may be a whole separate thing. It's all fragmented.
John?
Yeah, so completely agree with what everyone's saying, that this is, to me, as we think about what's our mandate, having a voice and recommending people be thinking about this is definitely well within the mandate. Whereas, and I didn't comment on the rat, but it ended up in the right place. That might be a really good example of something to raise to Jim as an example of why having a climate action plan is helpful, right? When we say owned by the DPW, certain things, it's not we're telling you to do it. It's we don't want to get in your way. We'll be happy to advocate for why it's a sustainable practice, but whether or not there's a grant available, like you guys are the experts. If we can help, if we can be staff augmentation to get it done, like all those things, we're in support of it, but not our call. We don't know sanitation. We don't know all of the ins and outs of that department. We're bringing the grant to your attention. We think it's a great idea sustainability wise. What can we do to help you understand it better and make a decision? So
right, we're advisory.
So
we have no clout. We have no strong say. We have no authority. We're just advisory. But it's important to raise the issue.
And then the second piece on the letter, I think, Don, you said a couple of times that it seems like they're doing it fragmented. And I'm not as close to this as you. I've read your notes and I've tried to pay attention to the recordings that are online. But if they made good progress with retail, and we believe that happened, obviously it can always go further. I would love to see the letter from the committee, commend them on the work that they did to move, the things they've done in other areas that we are really excited about, like the geothermal, and that we're encouraging in this next phase, if we could get involved a little bit more. And here are some ideas that we have that we think you could consider, and we would strongly urge both you and the community to talk more about it, that framing. And then we'll be happy to build and come back as you move phase to phase to phase to provide perspective and guidance and support if it's helpful to you. So just like, instead of just throwing all the spaghetti against the wall, hitting like the hey, we're psyched with the stuff you've done. We want to do more of it, and we see huge opportunity here in the next little bit. So you're better to write that letter than me, but I just wanted to say, if I can be helpful, let me know. I'm traveling over the next couple of weeks, but
yeah, and that's how progress has been made on the retail. People commend them for doing good stuff, but kept on stretching them. And so I think that paid out fairly well. The good thing is these are two experienced companies with knowledge, expertise, reputations to be made or lost in Massachusetts. So in some ways, it's good having a good, capable, knowledgeable applicant that's likely to do a better job than someone who's just barely making it.
Libby?
My question is for Don. Do you want me to send you my research that I've done on some of the things that I talked about before?
Yeah, or just in bullets, because this is going to have to be a pithy letter, and the trick is getting it out soon.
Yeah, I've got it all typed up so you can understand. And
okay, and
I can send it to you tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, you have my email or want it?
I think it was on the list.
Oh yes, yeah, sure. I've been sending emails. Yeah, you have it. Other takes, Sarah? What do you have a take? Does that seem workable to you?
So, Libby will give you some input. You'll write a letter, and then share it with me. I can send it out from sustainability.
And so it'd be delegated to us to approve it and send it off soon. So I'll probably have something. I have a deadline on Tuesday. I hope to get something out soon thereafter. But it could be pretty quick. It may be somewhat similar to what I've sent you already.
Only shorter, I would guess.
Yeah. The trick is to be pithy and a little bit more than bullet points, but yeah. So is that something we should take a vote on just for comfort level that, we've sort of made a decision, even though, it's sort of a soft to evaluate or discuss and explore. So it isn't really a hard and fast decision. It's just asking them to address this.
I'm not sure what exactly we would vote on, but I think I'd
allow us to put together a letter and send it.
Yeah.
And it's law of latitude, but at least to be somewhat comfort isn't like here's a letter from some crazy person that wants to do something. There's something that's been discussed and it's some sort of concern, and that's why it's good having two people do it.
Yeah. I guess if
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt here just to let you know I'm going to be leaving because I'm about ready to drop. But you guys can keep on going and I will try and pick this up from the recording and continue the minutes. Thank you.
And the minutes are always very nice. So it's your call, Sarah. What do you want to do?
I guess I'm not.
Do we just want to do it?
I don't think we need a vote to write a letter on behalf of the committee. My opinion.
Yeah.
So
I don't think so.
Okay, it's been discussed.
Draft it and we can distribute it for any commentary, with the idea being needs to be short, needs to be to the point, and like we all understand expediency here needs to be, we can't do 10 rounds of edits to get it perfect. So let's just
that's why I'm saying to delegate.
We ask for engagement.
To delegate, be up to the two of us. We have a sense of where everyone feels.
And we have all the comments on the minutes tonight and the recording. I think,
perfect.
yeah.
I love it.
Okay, and just the three quick things. I will go to the Mass Energize meeting on Monday. I can do that. I'm going to the conference, Energize conference, April 18th. And maybe next meeting, we could vote to authorize to reimburse people for the $75 costs as we did last year. Anyway, that's everything else.
Okay, I'll try and remember to put that on the agenda if you're going to that. It's 75. Okay.
I think so.
Okay, I can check. All right. Then I think that so our next meeting, first Thursday of the month on our regular schedule would be 4/2, Thursday, April 2nd. And with that, if there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. I think I saw a second from Libby. All right. I'm sorry. Did you have something else up?
Yeah, I will second that motion.
Okay. We can get a third and a fourth. All right. All in favor of adjournment for tonight. Emily?
Yes.
Charlotte?
Yes.
Libby? Don?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And I'm also yes. All right. Thank you all.